Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is every means of conquest, we first offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the personality of God, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. My regular attendance in Srimad Bhagavatam class and my rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We offer our respectful obeisances in the Bhagavan, the possessor of all opulences, the son of Vasudeva, known as Vasudeva, the all-pervading Lord Vasudeva, Sri Krishna. So we're reading Canto 1 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Creation, Chapter 15, entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely, text 34. Yaya Aharat Bhuvaha Haram Kanum Vijahau Kandakam
Ishituhu Samam
Yaya harapuho bharam
Yaharagulo Bharam
Tam tanum vijahavajah
Tam Tanum Vijahayaja
Andakam khandhakeneva
Kankankankaneva
Vayam chapi shitu samam
Vayam Chapishitu Samam
Yaya harapuho bharam
Yaharagulo Bharam
Tam tanum vijahavajah
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Andakam khandhakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Vayam chapi shitu samam
Vayam Chapishitu Samam
Yaya harapuho bharam
Yaharagulo Bharam
Tam tanum vijahavajah
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Andakam khandhakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Vayam chapi shitu samam
Vayam Chapishitu Samam
Yayaharagulo Bharam
Yaharagulo Bharam
Tanum Vijahavajam
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Dayam Chapisitu Shamam
Vayam Chapishitu Samam
Yayaharagulo Bharam
Yaharagulo Bharam
Tam Tanu Vijahavajah
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Vayam Chapisitu Samam
Dvayam Chapishitu Samam Yayaharagulo Bharam
Yayaharagulo Bharam
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Tanum Vijahavajah
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Dvayam Chapishitu Samam
Dayam Chapisitu Samam
Yayaharagulo Bharam
Yayaharagulo Bharam
Tam tanum vijahavajah
Tam Tanum Vijahavajah
Kantakam kantakeneva
Kantakam Kantakeneva
Vayam chapi shitu samam
Dvayam Chapishitu Samam
Word for word translation. Yaya,
Yaya
that by which.
That by which
Aharat,
Aharat
took away.
away
Bhuvaha, of the world.
of the world
Bharam,
Bharam
burden.
burden
Tam, that. Tanum, body. Vijahav, relinquished. Ajaha, the unborn.
unborn
Khandakam, thorn.
Tam
Khandakena, by the thorn. Eva, like that. Vayam, both. Cha, also. Abi, although. Ishitu, controlling. Samam, equal. Translation and purport. The supreme unborn Lord Sri Krishna caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. Report. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur suggests that the rishis like Shaunaka and others who were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami at Naimisharanya were not happy to hear about the Yadus dying in the madness of intoxication. To give them relief from this mental agony, Sutta Goswami assured them that the Lord caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, by which they had to take away the burden of the world. The Lord and his eternal associates appeared on earth to help the administrative demigods in eradicating the burden of the world. He therefore called for some of the confidential demigods to appear in the Yadu family and serve him in his great mission. After the mission was fulfilled, the demigods, by the will of the Lord, relinquished their corporeal bodies by fighting amongst themselves in the madness of intoxication. The demigods are accustomed to drinking the somaras beverage, and therefore the drinking of wine and intoxication are not unknown to them. Sometimes they were put into trouble for indulging in intoxication. Once the sons of Gaura fell in the wrath of Narada for being intoxicated, but afterwards they regained their original forms by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna. We shall find this story in the 10th canto. For the Supreme Lord, both the Asuras and the demigods are equal, but the demigods are obedient to the Lord, whereas the Asuras are not. Therefore the example of picking out a thorn by another thorn is quite befitting. One thorn which causes pinpricks on the leg of the Lord is certainly disturbing to the Lord. And the other thorn which takes out the disturbing elements certainly gives service to the Lord. So although every living being is a part and parcel of the Lord, still one who is a pinprick to the Lord is called an asura, and one who is a voluntary servitor of the Lord is called a devata, or demigod. In the material world, the devatas and asuras are always contending, and the devatas are always saved by the hands from, the devatas are always saved from the hands of the asuras by the Lord. Both of them are under the control of the Lord. The world is full of two kinds of living beings, and the Lord's mission is always to protect the devatas and destroy the asuras whenever there is such a need in the world, and to do good to both of them. Om Ajnati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So after my respectful obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, I also pray for the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas so that I may speak truthfully and pleasing to our spiritual master. Translation. The Supreme Unborn Lord Sri Krishna caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. Kantakam kantakeneva. That's the Sanskrit. Like a thorn with a thorn. The Lord picked out the burden of the world. So, yeah, generally a thorn is a bad thing because it's painful and it's hard to remove. But also a thorn can be helpful. Prabhupada gave this example, I think, in Bhagavad Gita about how, well, he says curd, but I think he means yogurt, like the Indian way of saying yogurt, can help like some intestinal problem you have that you got from drinking too much dairy. But the same dairy can solve that problem. So it's kind of like that although the demigods shouldn't be a thorn to the Lord, but they're also very powerful, and like the demons, they're very powerful. So they can remove that thorn of the demons in the world. So kind of like curing the disease with the disease is the idea. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the, I believe it's the Krishna book, although actually a pastime of his Krishna's disappearance isn't in the Krishna book, but I believe it's in the 11th canto, what's called the Maushala Lila, disappearance of Krishna. So perhaps it's there. But I remember Krishna book that the Yadus, actually the Lord was concerned because of the Yadus were very powerful, and that was actually becoming a burden. I'm not sure why. It sounds like maybe they were too aggressive or something. I don't remember exactly.
Also, I just read that part.
Oh, yeah?
Also because they were becoming proud of their prowess and their strength, and the fact that they had this relationship with the Lord, this familiar relationship, so that they were getting kind of like out of control.
I see. So, yeah, because it seems like, well, at least I could stay for some time and, help keep the peace or something. But the other thing is, maybe the internal reason is that the Lord wants his devotees to remain with him in his next pastime. So they have to return with him. They have to appear with the Lord, to be in his pastime again. And then the other Devatas, Prabhupada didn't say all of them, but he said that some of them, like the most prominent or special demigods, they appeared also in the Lord's pastime. They also took birth in the family of the Yadus and assisted in the pastimes of Krishna. So that's something. And then this is interesting. Prabhupada explains that the demigods are accustomed to intoxication. And I always find that kind of hard to reconcile, because they're the most responsible personalities in the world, but there's that aspect of their lives. There's a strong capacity to enjoy. And the nature of intoxication is that you aren't responsible, is that you go kind of out of control. That's what it does to you. So, but that's there. And nevertheless, Prabhupada says that the sons of Kuvera, because of taking the intoxication, they entered the wrath of Narada, and Narada cursed them for that. Of course, the curse of Narada can only benefit one, but still it's some kind of punishment. And so, even if somebody is a demigod, if they do things like drink or whatever, then it's very likely they're going to get into trouble. So it's a lesson for us, because right now we may be under the protection of the Lord, at least to a certain degree. But by not being cautious in our service, then we open ourselves up to it. It's not that the Lord's mercy didn't extend toward us, but we didn't take shelter of him. There's a few instances we can probably think of Lord Indra getting carried away. I was hearing Ramayana recently, the Amalavakta version of Ramayana, and there's a short part in the Ramayana about the pastime of Gautam and Ahalya, and how Indra, he disguised himself like Gautam, but Ahalya, she was a smart woman. She was the wife of Gautam, and she could understand this was Indra, so she took advantage of the opportunity to make love with Indra. But both of them got cursed by Gautam. So Indra, he became castrated, actually, by his curse. And I think there's a couple stories in the Bhagavatam about Indra, where one of them is, that I can think of, he offended Brihaspati. And that caused the demigods to lose their power because of offending a great personality. And that was not exactly the same thing as that Indra was drinking and he fell into Maya, but he became a little intoxicated by the glory he was getting from his people, and he didn't properly welcome his guru. So his guru became offended, and the demi kind of abandoned their his mentorship of the demigods, and they lost their power. So that caused the whole problem for the demigods, because the demigods were taken over. And then of course in the 10th canto we have Indra not submitting to Krishna and thinking that Krishna had offended him because he stopped the yaga that was meant for him, and then becoming angry and then attacking Vrindavan. So yeah, in one way or another, if we become intoxicated by different material pleasures, I guess, then we lose that shelter of the Lord. But it's nice, Prabhupada said that in both of these situations, at least with Kuvera, by the grace of the Lord, they regained their original forms. And the example also he gives with the demigods is that even though they became intoxicated, they went to their respective destinations. So the Lord can allow mistakes. It's not that he's not merciful. Nevertheless, the devotee doesn't try to take advantage of that. So he sticks closely to the Lord's lotus feet. And that's how we should live. If we're obedient, we can be confident of the Lord's protection. If we do what our spiritual master instructed us, the closer we can follow it, the better. That will keep us out of Maya and trouble more and more. But we shouldn't forget even great personalities they become bewildered. Sometimes, of course, those are actually the Lord's desire. Like, the Lord used Lord Shiva, Lord Krishna. He bewildered Lord Shiva by Mohini Murti. So, even personalities, they can show an example, or like Lord Brahma became bewildered by his daughter. But often the examples are just to instruct the aspiring devotees that this is the power of Maya. Just as the Lord is powerful, so his energy is very powerful. So, those are some things about this purport. I'll open up to any discussion, and then maybe after that we can talk about Gadadhar Pandit. Probably
Yeah, well, there's a couple of quick things. One is, I read recently that another reason he wanted them, well, not just like a burden to the earth, but that he didn't want to create a hereditary line of where the son, Krishna, where the son of Bhagavan, so that they couldn't claim that biologically that they're, connected. That was, I read this, I think something to do with what you're telling me, but probably went back to this point, where I was just reading that chapter that you were talking about in the 11th canto a couple of months ago. The other thing is, well, two quick things. Is Somaras really an intoxication? I thought it was like an elixir.
Prabhupada speaks about it like that here. The demigods are accustomed to drinking the Somaras beverage, therefore the drinking of wine and intoxication are not unknown to them.
But don't Kshatriyas also have permission sometimes to?
Yep.
So the other quick thing was there's another example in the Bhagavatam with Prithu Maharaj, where Indra became concerned that Prithu was going to perform 100 horse sacrifices, and he kept stealing the last horse. And it created false sannyasis by his example. And so Krishna had to come and stop it.
Yeah.
I don't want to pile on about Indra. I don't want, you're a great devotee, Indra. But no, that's just another one I remember.
Yeah, it's certainly true that people have become puffed up because they had some blood relation with the Lord or his associates.
There's something about the Nityananda bumps.
Actually, it's like in one sense, you can't have a blood relationship with the Lord.
No.
In another sense, everybody has a relationship with the Lord in
we're
an even
also-
deeper way. So,
Right.
but yeah, there's that. Like people, I was born. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, they're special souls, but still, that alone does not qualify them to be the Lord's representative.
Right.
And I think since the time of Advaitacharya, we were speaking about on yesterday or 2 days ago. He had one side of the family, or at least the sons on the other, from one of the wives were not, I don't know if they weren't devotees, but I guess their Siddhanta was off or something like that. They didn't represent it.
They became Mayavadis.
Oh, they became Mayavadis.
And then their branch dried up.
One little part, too, is interesting what y'all say is that they came for the sole purpose of executing the Lord's pastime and his appearance. The Leela was up.
Right.
So to stay behind and start doing the whole thing is like, hey, no, you didn't come for that. You just time to go back home,
Yeah.
So it's a normal part of the pastime to go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah. There's also the example of Narottam Das Thakur. I think he just missed Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
Disappearance, and that's a little confusing because he appears to be an eternal associate of the Lord, but he appears like right after Mahaprabhu, and I don't understand that, but it kind of throws a wrench in the understanding that they only come when he's there, and then that's it. And then you have so many empowered, eternally liberated souls coming, even like a century after, Jiva Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Rasikananda, Shyamananda, they're all eternally liberated souls, but it was like they were sent to maintain or preserve or develop the teachings of Mahaprabhu.
Srila Prabhupada,
Srila Prabhupada, yeah.
and they're still coming.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's some other part of Narottam where, I don't remember it specifically, but where Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda deposited his bliss or his ecstasy in the river at the Ganga. Do you remember specifically, Maharaji?
Yeah, Narottam.
So
You're thinking about Narottam last time.
yeah, and so he instructed the Ganga that you will know him when he comes, and you give him this.
Right.
Yeah, this, and then his color, the color of his body, he was a darker color, and then he became golden after this experience.
Yeah, there's a new book that came out, like new means maybe within the last year, about Narottam Das. I think it was written by Mataji, I can't remember, but my wife bought it. And
It's Harsard's wife, Sita.
yeah, so that's there. My wife read it like in 2 days or something. She was just ecstatic. So I should read it myself. Anything else? Okay, so I'll just speak a little bit about Gadadhar Pandit. I don't know so much, but I was trying to hear and take some notes. But so Gadadhar Pandit, there's a verse Prabhupada quotes sometimes. No, I'm not remembering it. Anyway, it's about the Panchatattva. It talks about the different Bhaktavataram, Bhaktakyam, Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. You know, I can't remember the beginning of the verse, but it describes who the Panchatattva are and
Panchatatmakam Krishna.
Panchatattmakam Krishna, Bhakta. That's right. So in that verse, Gadadhar Pandit, he's the Bhakti Shakti. He's the energy of the Lord. So he's known to be Srimati Radharani, coming in the pastime of Mahaprabhu. So he was born in a place called Vilitigram. And Astika, please correct me. I know I just heard this. I was hearing it. I didn't read it. So any of these words, Vilitigram in the district of Chottagram in present-day Bangladesh. His mother was Ratnavati Mishra. I didn't get his father's name from the lecture. But he moved to Navadvip at the age of 12. And they moved very close to Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Mishra. And they all became very close friends, just like family. And they were inseparable, Gadadhar Pandit and Vishwambhar Mishra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And also, Shachi Mata and Ratnavati became just like sisters. It's probably how life usually is in the village, where families are just like one family. You know, I've heard that anyway, that in real villages, people just speak about the other members of the same age, like their brother or sister. So that's how their families were together, Gadadhar Pandit and Mahaprabhu's family. And they were like sisters. And Gadadhar Pandit, he appears in all the principal pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, except when he's on pilgrimage. Like he pretty much stays in Jagannath Puri. When they were, I'll talk about that later, but as children, Vishwambhar and Gadadhar Pandit, they used to do dramas together and enact different pastimes of the Lord. So I know that in one of the dramas, then Gadadhar Pandit, he played the role of Vaikuntha Lakshmi. And also the song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that we sing, it's Gaura Arti. So in that song, it gives a little bit of the rasa there that Gadadhar Pandit, he is, but he exhibited the mood of Srimati Radharani. He would make a garland for Mahaprabhu. And in Bengal, they do this one akar, or ornament of the song, just like Shankha Bhaja, Ganta Bhaja, you know. It's not really part of the song, but it's repeated. And it's Gadadhara Vala Mala, like that. So Gadadhar makes this garland of forest flowers for the Lord. That's one of the pastimes he has. This is the vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I don't understand really how all that works, because they're in one lila, but they're exhibiting like these rasas of another lila, but it's there. And Gadadhar Pandit's mood is he's very grave. He's very grave and doesn't mingle a lot with other even devotees. He's just kind of solitary, very deep. But he even tried to avoid the Lord for a certain period because the Lord became kind of arrogant. Transcendentally arrogant. When he became Nimai Pandit, he would argue with the residents of Navadvip about what Gadadhar Pandit may be considered a little bit mundane, like grammar and logic. He would have debates with the residents of Navadvip. So Gadadhar Pandit didn't like this, and he actually, when he returned home from school, he would try to avoid Mahaprabhu. He would go on a different path so he wouldn't see him. He didn't like this. And the devotees in Navadvip, they said that if Nimai Pandit, if he just became a Vaishnava, like a great Vaishnava, I guess not that he wasn't already, but they would say that he became a great Vaishnava, then everybody would follow him because he's so influential. He was so learned, and so many people loved him. Right? Navadvip is something like Vrindavan manifest in Bengal, in Navadvip, in Chaitanya Lila. So they were always hoping, let him become a devotee. So one time, Mahaprabhu, he told Gadadhar Pandit that, just see, someday I will become a great Vaishnava, so great that even Brahma and Shiva will come and to see me like that. So anyway, time goes on, and then Mahaprabhu, he went to Gaya, I believe because he was doing Shraddha for his passed away father. Yeah, but it's there that he took initiation by Ishwara Puri. And Ishwara Puri also had a relationship with Gadadhar Pandit. I don't know if he was also initiated by Ishwara Puri, but he had he took some shiksha. Maybe he was also a Diksha disciple of Ishwara Puri, but Gadadhar Pandit had a relationship with him. And Ishwara Puri was impressed with Gadadhar Pandit because he was such a serious devotee. He was very grave. He wasn't, foolish. Normal children are a little bit kind of foolish. And Gadadhar Pandit, he wasn't like that. So Ishwara Puri was very impressed with him. And when Mahaprabhu went to Gaya, he took initiation from Ishwara Puri. And there's one pastime where the devotees in Navadvip were picking flowers. I'm pretty sure it was Srivas Thakur's house. There was a tree that gave unlimited flowers. I'm pretty sure it was Srivas Thakur. But anyway, there's some tree like that in Navadvip, at least in the Leela. And when the devotees were out in the morning picking flowers, then Sriman Pandit, he announced that Mahaprabhu, maybe they didn't refer to him as Mahaprabhu, but Vishvambar is coming. And he's become a great Vaishnava. He's always chanting the names of Krishna. So he said that we should all go to the house of Shuklambar Brahmachari in Navadvip. And so they did. So all the Vaishnavas went there. And Shuklambar Brahmachari, not really sure how this all works because he's a Brahmachari, but he lives in the house. But anyway, he is a Brahmachari, and he was quite poor, and his house was also poorly built. But all the devotees went there to see Mahaprabhu, and when Mahaprabhu came, he was in ecstasy. He was mad, actually, with love for Krishna. And he almost didn't really notice the devotees so much. He just was chanting Krishna, and he was, exclaiming, he was asking, "Where is Krishna?" And he went for the pillar in the house, and that pillar collapsed. And then he also fell down in ecstasy. Now, what had happened is Gadadhar Pandit wanted to see this because Gadadhar was a little bit in disbelief because he thought, I don't know about this, for so long Mahaprabhu, he's been just kind of a scholar and arrogant and arguing and all this stuff, and he just couldn't believe it. So he went to hide in that house, in a closet or something, somewhere where the other devotees weren't. And the ecstasy of Mahaprabhu, when he came to, was so great that the other devotees, they also went into ecstasy. And I guess they were chanting. They were also crying. And then Mahaprabhu heard Gadadhar Pandit crying. Or he didn't know who it was, but he heard, "Who's that crying?" And they said, and then Sriman Pandit said, "Oh, that's your Gadadhar." So Mahaprabhu went to see Gadadhar, and they embraced, and he said, they kind of, not made amends, but they came to a common understanding. They were, Gadadhar Pandit was very happy that Mahaprabhu had become a great devotee. And Mahaprabhu, of course, was just happy to see Gadadhar. So that was one of the pastimes they had. And then later, Mahaprabhu, there was of course, we know he's a Lord, but after becoming a great devotee, he would have daily these kirtans in Srivas Angam, in the courtyard of Srivas Thakur. And it said that the devotees' ecstasy would reach its pinnacle. And then the next day it would just multiply like 1,000,000 times. And again, every day it was just expanding and expanding, the ecstasy. But one day Mahaprabhu just left. And there was no more Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. And he had taken sannyas. But Gadadhar Pandit went with him. So he left to Puri. And Gadadhar Pandit was very happy to be there because he just wanted to be with Mahaprabhu. Now at some point, Mahaprabhu, he was walking with Gadadhar Pandit on the beach. I believe it was a beach. And Mahaprabhu said, dig here. And that's where Gadadhar Pandit unearthed the Gopinath deity. And then the deity was installed in the garden, I guess, Tota garden, Gopinath. So, somewhere in there, Gadadhar Pandit, he made 2 vows in Puri. He said that I will remain here. This was a way for him to stay near Mahaprabhu. He took Kshetra sannyas, in other words, a type of sannyas mode where they just stay in one place. And that way, Gadadhar Pandit felt very secure that he would always be around Mahaprabhu. So he was very happy to do that. And also that he will, worship Gopinath. So that would, of course, it was a gift. It was the deity that Mahaprabhu gave Gadadhar Pandit to worship. But also Gadadhar Pandit felt like there's no way I can not be around Lord Chaitanya now because I have these 2 vows. I am a pujari and I also have taken Kshetra sannyas, so I can't leave. Mahaprabhu could leave his own devotees in Navadvip, and what could they do? But he couldn't leave. He wouldn't be able to, have to go anywhere else. He would have to be able to stay in Puri with Mahaprabhu. Actually, that's apparently how the pujaris used to live. Like, they would never go anywhere, actually. If they're a pujari, they would be trained up by their family. And they wouldn't even go on pilgrimage because they're already worshiping the deity. There's no need to go on pilgrimage. Interesting way of looking at being a pujari. So, that was how it was. But Mahaprabhu then, later, he wanted to travel. In the meantime, they had the relationship that Mahaprabhu and all his devotees in Puri would come and see Gadadhar Pandit at his residence, which was a little bit distant from everybody else, because that was how he liked to live. He liked to be a little bit solitary. But Mahaprabhu would come regularly and hear the Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. He would recite it, and the devotees would also come and hear it from him. Particularly the pastimes of Prahlad and Dhruva. So that's also kind of, it is instructive that Mahaprabhu wouldn't hear in general in the intimate pastimes of Krishna or Radha and Krishna in a public setting. He did later, later when he was in Puri, he just stayed, what is that room called? The Gambhir? It's a small little Gambhir. And then with just a couple of associates that were qualified, then they heard these pastimes. But otherwise, he would mostly hear Bhagavatam, and it would be recited by Gadadhar Pandit. But when he did want to travel, then Gadadhar was perplexed because he couldn't leave. Actually, it said that he didn't even consider it. He just said, I'm going with you. And it said just like leaving a piece of straw, he gave up his vows. But Mahaprabhu wasn't happy. Mahaprabhu, what's it called? He entreated Gadadhar, don't do this. You've taken up the service of the Lord. And then Gadadhar Pandit replied something to the effect of, you are the Lord. What is the point of being, with the deity when you're here? So he said, I won't go with you. Mahaprabhu didn't want to... See, he said that it'll be my fault, because basically Mahaprabhu is like the guru, for Gadadhar, whether Diksha or not, I don't know how that worked. But he was junior to Mahaprabhu, and even by a couple of years, he appeared a little bit after Mahaprabhu. But he said, I won't go with you, I'll just go a little bit behind, and I'm going on the plea that I'm going to see Mother Shachi. I'm taking darshan of Mother Shachi. So I'll just go behind you because I know you're going to Bengal and then, or going north, and yeah. So anyway, I can't remember if he was going on another trip at that time, but Mahaprabhu allowed it for a little bit, maybe about 60 miles. And at Cuttack, he turned around again and he said, call Gadadhar. He asked somebody to bring Gadadhar, and he said that, you shouldn't do this, basically. He could understand how much Gadadhar loved him, but he didn't want this to happen, because after all, Mahaprabhu, he said the external reason for his appearance is that he's teaching. He's giving the Yuga Dharma, and he's also teaching us how to be devotees. So taking a vow, that's not a light thing. It's not that you just give it up because you have bhava or something. Of course, Gadadhar did have real bhava, but the point was that it was instructed to the other devotees. You can't just make a vow to take Kshetra Sannyas and then just give it up, like without even thinking, and give up the worship of the deity. So Mahaprabhu said that, you are giving me pain, actually. If you say anything more about this, then I can't remember exactly, but he said that you'll be giving me great pain. And without waiting for a second, he just got on the boat and crossed over the river. And then Gadadhar Pandit fainted. And then Mahaprabhu told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you take care of him, because he needs that. And Gadadhar, and then he told him, this is Mahaprabhu's Leela, and nobody can go against it. So they both went back to Puri, brokenhearted. But Gadadhar Pandit, even after the disappearance of Mahaprabhu, he continued to worship the deity of Gopinath. I've never had the privilege of taking darshan of Gopinath, but even into his quote-unquote old age, so much so that the deity, he sat down so Gadadhar Pandit could decorate him. And the version we get from CC is that actually Mahaprabhu entered that deity when he disappeared. So it's a very close, relationship that Gadadhar Pandit has with Mahaprabhu. And after all, we chant his name like several times a day. So we should try to remember him at least once or twice a year. And pray for his mercy to become a pure devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna. So I'll stop. Does anybody want to add anything?
So, Gadadhar Pandit's Diksha Guru was Pundarik Pitanidhi, who was Vrishabhanu in Krishna Lila.
So, okay. Yeah, I guess there is that pastime, famous pastime, that's also in the CC, where Gadadhar Pandit was instructed, I think, maybe it was by Mahaprabhu or Mukunda. Anyway, Mukunda said you should see this devotee. And Gadadhar Pandit was doubtful because Pundarik's behavior was externally materialistic, right? He lived in a lot of opulence, like a lot of opulence. And Gadadhar Pandit didn't like that. Or not that he didn't like it, but he just doubted the caliber of his devotion by seeing that. So he left Pundarik's associate, he just went away thinking that he's not qualified to teach me anyway. And then he was sent back. Again, I can't remember. It was Mukunda or Mahaprabhu, both of them. But he went back and I think Mukunda recited this verse from Bhagavatam, Aho Bhaktiyam Patakalakuntam, about the mercy of Krishna. He's so merciful that even Putana was given a place in the spiritual world, despite the fact that she tried to kill him. And after that, Pundarik Vidyanidhi went into ecstasy for hours and destroyed everything around him. And then Gadadhar Pandit realized that not only was he a great devotee, but he's made a great offense. And therefore the only way to rectify the offense he made by thinking, just a mental offense actually, but by just thinking that he was a materialist, is that I must take initiation from him. And so that's how he became the disciple of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So there's that. Thank you for reminding me. That was actually one of the CC pastimes. Yes, Martha?
Isn't there one pastime, I've been to this temple that they in Nagali Parikram, where how Gadadhar done in the altar. So it was like, it was another pastime to show that, the Lord was there, whether or not
Right.
he was in his form or in a deity form.
I want to say that's Raghav Pandit, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was Gadadhar because he was so attached to always being there. But
Well, it sounds similar to what is the place, Astika, where they don't give you very long darshan because the deities jumped off.
That's Ambika Kalna.
Ambika Kalna, is that the one you're talking about? And then they couldn't tell, is it the deities? Is it the
I
real
thought it
Garnata?
was to pacify. Okay, yeah.
But
And
they
that
could also-
time they were in the kirtan and, jumping around, but I thought there was one related to Gadadhar.
The temple at Rit, you just get a short darshan, and that's with Hridoy Chaitanya.
Hridoy Chaitanya?
Different,
Okay.
because he jumped into his heart.
There could be.
But there is another one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not actually very familiar with who he is and his history. Okay, thank you very much.
Right.